Welcome to Roll Call, a 126th Air Refueling Wing podcast of the Illinois Air National Guard at Scott Air Force Base. I'm your host, Technical Sergeant Brian Ellison. The Roll Call podcast focused on people, mission, and community. Hello to all of our deployers listening this week. Thanks for listening. We'll hear from the 126th Air Refueling Wing Commander one more time. He'll explain why he joined the Air National Guard and why he joined the 126th Air Refueling Wing as a crew chief. But before we really get started, I got to ask a question. Check your cargo pockets real fast, okay? Look at the back of the cargo pocket. Why do we have this third button on our cargo pockets, on our OCPs? Right? Look at them. Check them out. It's right there. I realized it one day while I was talking to my wife, probably about something very important, but I interrupted her right in mid-sentence, like just with this bewildered look on my face. And she's like, what don't you understand what I'm saying? And I was like, well, I have this third button on my cargo pockets on my uniform, and I don't understand what it's there for. I've been meaning to bring this up on the podcast now for a while. So maybe I should have asked the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Joanne Bass, while she was here last Wednesday for a total force maintenance and logistics all-call in the 126th Maintenance Group hangar. Hey, why do we have this third button on our cargo pocket? But instead, someone asked her, I think, even a more important question. She was asked about how the new PT program is going to look.
So the fitness working group is supposed to spend some time with me sometime this month to share with me what some of the recommendations are. They huddled in December and took a holistic look at what are some changes that we need to make and how do we get there. So I need to wait until they link up with me, but what I think they're going to provide us, or at least here's a little bit of direction that I gave them. What I told them is, in 2021, we should be able to figure out how to have different options when it comes to assessing PT. We should be able to figure out a way where we have different options on assessing cardio. We should be able to figure out a different way that it's not just the mile and a half. So that's one of the things that I think they're going to look at. What are some different options on assessing strength training? This year, we will make some changes to the PT test. I hope that team comes back to me with some options. The other option that I did tell them, and I'm not 39, but while I might be 39, I don't think I need to run as fast as a 30-year-old. So figure that piece out too. So I think they're going to figure out some different time chunks. I think we'll look at functional stuff, and then we'll see from there.
I agree with her. At 47, I should not have to run as fast as a 40-year-old, or as a matter of fact, the commander, Colonel Jackson.
Hi, my name's Senior Airman Gregory Godair. I'm part of the 126 Comptroller flight, and I'm a financial manager here. My day-to-day job would be, I'm an accounting technician basically, so I'm in charge of all the squadron's purchases. I make sure they hit the books correctly. What I like most about being in the 126 is I'm an AGR out here, so I work out here full-time. With that, I get a bunch of opportunities. Traveling is probably my favorite opportunity. I've been to a bunch of cool places like Washington State, which was the first time I've ever been there. I also play on the base softball team, so I get to travel with them quite a bit as well. I joined the Air National Guard because after college, I had a couple jobs I didn't really like, and I wanted to have an impactful career and make a difference on my community. I chose the 126 because I could pretty much stay around all my friends and family and still be part of the Air National Guard. I joined the Comptroller flight because my bachelor's in business management, and it kind of just fell hand in hand with working with finances. One huge benefit I've been taking advantage of is my full-time employment as an AGR. As an AGR, I get active duty pay, benefits, and everything that goes along with being active duty, but I get to stay home.
Hi, we are the 126 recruiting team. I'm Master Sergeant Heather Wilde, recruiting flight chief.
I'm Technical Sergeant Richard Olson, production recruiter. To learn more about career training with the 126, give us a call at 618-222-5701.
But wait, there's more. Give us a call in the next 5 minutes and you could qualify for 4 years of free college tuition.
Joining us one last time on Roll Call is the 126th Air Refueling Wing Commander, Colonel Tom Jackson. Thanks again, sir, for coming in and talking to us. You've been in the wing now 32 years. What made you decide to join the Air National Guard?
Well, I never grew up learning about knowing what the Air National Guard was or anything else. So I grew up on the western suburbs of Chicago, and the airplanes that flew into O'Hare on runway 9 right, 9 left flew right over my house.
Okay.
About 10 miles west. So they weren't super low, but they were low enough that you could see them. And every once in a while, I saw a dark gray airplane fly over. It was something hanging off the back of the airplane. And I always wondered what the heck it was. I had no idea. But I also had a small airport about 2 miles from my house that they did fly right over my house, super low and right on the pattern. So that's what really kind of initiated my interest in flying. And then when I was, I think about 8 years old, my older sister took me up in a small airplane with her boyfriend, and he let me put the gear up and down, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I like this. I got to look out the window and see the world go by, and I still do that today, so it's kind of cool. But no, I was in college at Lewis University up in Joliet, Illinois.
Okay.
And Romeoville, and I was running up there on the college team, and it was expensive. I was at a scholarship, but it was still a very expensive school, and
I thought the state paid for. I thought the state paid for your stay in Joliet.
I wasn't. Yeah, that was a different stay in Joliet.
Oh, okay.
But no, I wasn't in the Guard yet, so I went to college without even knowing about the Guard. I was kind of recruited on a running scholarship there, and it was a Catholic university, and it was expensive, but it was close to home and close to my girlfriend, my wife now at the time. But anyway, my wife and I, the summer of '88, went to Rockford for the Rockford Air Show.
Okay.
And unbeknownst to me, there was I didn't know what would be there. I just, hey, an air show. I liked airplanes. Let's go to the air show. And at the time, we lived out in northern Illinois, and Rockford wasn't too far away. And we showed up. They had a KC-135 there, and the recruiters were doing their thing and had a little display out in front of, hey, we pay your college tuition. And I was like, hey, tell me more. And so they asked me my story, and I told them that I wanted to fly airplanes, and they're like, well, we pay your college tuition and all this other stuff. I said, well, how do I get to fly one of these? and it's like, well, you gotta have a degree first. I'm like, well, I'm already got about a year in, so I was like, well, you could sign up to be a crew chief, and then after you get your degree, apply for a pilot slot. And I said, oh, well, how do I do that? And then a few months later, I signed up, and January of '89, I swore in and went to basic training in the summer of '89, and was a crew chief for about 3 years, and then in '93 was selected for a pilot slot. But yeah, I initially joined the Guard for the college benefits and to fly airplanes, and had no idea that I'd stay there for right now 32 years.
What's your degree in?
Aviation management. I ended up transferring to SIU Carbondale, which we have a lot of Salukis on our team here.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, a lot of our senior leaders are Saluki graduates. Colonel Babiak calls it the MIT of the Shawnee, but a very well-known aviation school. But yeah, I got a degree in aviation management from there, and then about 8 years ago now, I got a degree from Champaign, University of Illinois Champaign, for a master's degree. But
What was that in?
It's a recreation, sport, and tourism. It's kind of like an MBA for recreational, like a sport business. So I based everything upon my bike business, and
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like an MBA, but I was able to focus all the studies, all the education, all the studies I had to do. I did that. My bike shop was the subject of that study.
That's nice. You know what? I should take up I should have probably gotten degrees that mean something instead of political science and public policy. They really go far. My owner of the radio station I worked at when I got my degree in political science, he says, "Thanks for getting that. I know you're going to be here for the rest of your life." What made you choose the 126th Air Refueling Wing? You know why I have to ask these questions? Because my commander is making me ask everybody these questions.
Yes. Well, so no, honestly, I'm from Illinois. Since I grew up in Illinois, and for me, I wanted to stay in Illinois and go to school in Illinois, and really, it was just by meeting the unit there in Rockford that year, and that was my first exposure to even what the Air National Guard was. I had no idea. I have to be honest, I walked up to the airplane thinking, oh, wow, they brought an active duty airplane in here. So, but really it was just because it's in Illinois. I'm born and raised in Illinois, and I've always wanted to stay here, and that's why.
What made you want to move down to where are we at? Shiloh, Belleville? Scott Air Force Base. Thank you.
Well, as you know, Chicago Air Guard. I mean, the Air Guard was founded up there in Chicago in 1927.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were at Midway Airfield, and then when we moved from Midway, we moved to Orchard Park, which is now O'Hare.
Oh, wow.
And that's where ORD comes from Orchard Park.
Oh, I thought it came from Richard Daley. I thought it was named after Richard Daley.
No, it's Orchard Park. When it used to be Orchard Park Airfield way back in the teens and 20s.
I always heard that Richard Daley stuck his name in there. Okay. Anyways, we were up there, and then my first 10 years was there, and then in the 1995 BRAC, they this is where Richard Daley comes in, was his effort to get back our land at the airfield. It was always been he'd always wanted us out because that was airspace or land on the airfield that they wanted to use for commercial activities. And our military installation there was taking up that space. So in the BRAC of 1995, it was put in that the Illinois Air National Guard at the 126th Air Refueling Wing at O'Hare Airfield would be moved to Rockford, Illinois. Was the original legal kind of what came out in that original law. Right. Congressman Costello from down here in the local area got involved and added a phrase to that which changed the history that said, or a suitable military alternate. And when that was added to the BRAC list, God bless them.
That's what drove our move to Scott Air Force Base. They worked with everything here. Costello got our particular campus here. At the time, there was no Mid-America runway. It was.
I remember that.
This part of our there was full of there was a Cardinal Creek housing. There was TLFs and a couple other things over here. Well, when the other runway was built, they couldn't have the housing, so they took all of our space. So the only building that was kind of original, if you will, is our main hangar. That was built in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
Everything else is brand new. Was built between 97 and 2000, and that's what the move was. So Chicago paid for a large portion of that, and then obviously the federal government, a little bit of St. Clair County and some other stuff. But and that's what moved us down. So it wasn't so much that I wanted to move down, but I was a full-time technician at the time, and airlines had not started hiring yet, and I was, pretty happy as a technician. I was I really enjoyed the job and enjoyed the stability, and of course after several years of being a traditional guard bum in the city of Chicago, and it was a little bit challenging. So financially, I was doing well.
Yeah.
My wife and I and the family enjoyed it. So, and since we went to school in Southern Illinois, we liked the area, and we moved down and loved it ever since. And so so my wife and I, family, we've been living here ever since then.
I got to ask a question. My son, talking about flying and all that. My son asked me. We were driving back from Taekwondo last night. I live right near. I live in St. Charles, but we're on the flight path for Lambert.
Okay.
So I don't know how high they are. They're not very high because we can read tails. I said, hey, look at that, Sam. He's 9, and I said, look at that. Isn't that cool? Because they start turning their lights on and stuff like that right above our house and they're in their clouds. And he goes, well, how do they know where they're going when they fly through clouds, sir? I'll ask you that question.
We just close our eyes and hope for the best. Now, it's very similar. We've all seen a road map, right? Where you see a road map of highways in the country, and you want to go from St. Louis to L.A., you pick your route, and you stay on that road, right? Or roads, and that's the road map you fly. Well, same thing for pilots. We have essentially road maps in the sky, and they're flown on radio beams or between GPS coordinates, and you're just a direct point from here to there, and that's how we do it. So for our instrument approaches, when you're flying through the clouds into a runway, we have that road map includes not only it's a three-dimensional road map. It not only includes the direction of how to get from A to B, meaning B is the end of the runway, but it also has to go from 5,000 feet to the ground level. So there's two road maps, both glide path and route, and you stick on both of them. The instruments in the airplane tell you how to do that and help you there, and you just follow the road map. I mean, not to oversimplify a flying, but that's essentially what pilots do. Is we just put kind of keep the car on the map and drive the path in.
Oh, you make it sound pretty easy. Maybe.
It's not as difficult as some people think. It's flying is not difficult. It's the systems and everything else. And as you get into larger airplanes, the system gets much more complex. Is being able to understand what the system's doing so that you can fly the airplane.
Which you flew commercially for a while, right?
I did, yes.
Okay. You told me a funny story the other day, and I gotta ask, why do pilots wear clip-on ties?
Well, not all do.
Not all, okay.
But
it's a smart thing to do, it sounds like.
One of the things I was taught in my early on in my airline career was because you got to wear ties being professional around the flying public, but when you get in the cockpit, we always kind of relax, loosen up a little bit. And I had a pilot once who had a clip-on tie, and he just kind of unclipped it, and I was like, "What do you have a clip-on tie for, man?" Thinking, you're an adult, and you know how to tie a tie, right? And he goes, "Well, actually, I wear that so that when I'm out in the flying public, when someone grabs my tie because they're mad because their flight's late, they're not going to choke me. The tie's just going to come off my shirt." And I said, "Oh, that's pretty smart. I didn't think about that." So and the knot is always perfect. It's always there. It's easy to put on and off. And when you get in the cockpit, you just want to unclip rather than trying to snug it back up and make sure it's square and straight. That was pretty smart.
Let's get to the fun stuff. Not that we haven't been talking about fun stuff, but so you're a triathlete.
Sometimes.
Are you mental? I mean, what is the deal with triathletes? I don't understand. Do you like pain?
I think it. Well, I grew up as a runner,
right?
So I started my kind of athletic career as a runner. I did baseball and softball, all that kind of stuff when you're young.
Sure.
But when I got into middle school, running is what really kind of. Everybody has something, right?
Sure.
Some people it's soccer, some people it's football, where it's just like they have a love for that particular event, chess, name it.
Yeah.
And running was it. For me, it was just in sixth grade. They had running for gym class, and part of the finish of gym class was an 800-meter run, and you did it for time. And I ended up running against this kid who was really competitive and was winning everything, and I almost beat him. And I was
nice.
like, wow, this is really fun, and that just kind of what gave me the bug. So I ran through high school and did a little bit in college, and
cross country
and track. Yep.
Okay.
And then when I was down at Carbondale going to school, I was not running on the college team there because that's a Division I team, and I was not good enough for that. That's for sure. But I was still doing quite a bit of running, and I was actually having a lot of success. Probably the best year of running ever. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a small triathlon here. You should try that." And I go, "What the heck is a triathlon?" And it was called Doc Spackman, which I think is still going on there at Carbondale.
Really?
Yeah. And it was I want to say like a 200 or 300 meter swim across the lake, and then a 6 or 7 mile bike ride and a 2 mile run around the lake. And
that's it. I mean, it sounds easy, but then that swimming gets me.
Yeah. And so it was, and it's in April.
Oh.
So the water was a bit chilly. This is before the wetsuits were as popular as they are now. But anyway, I said, yeah, sure, what the heck, I'll give it a try. And I had swum a little bit in grade school competitively, but nothing crazy, only 1 year. Never ridden a bike competitively at all.
Oh, sure.
So I did the triathlon and by the time I got to the run, I was pretty tired, but the run was my thing at the time. So ended up catching a whole bunch of people on the run. I really enjoyed it. Finished the race in second place behind a friend of mine who was going to school and was a professional triathlete. And I thought, wow, this is kind of fun. Because once again, I did okay. And it was because in the running circles down there, even though I was running well, I was never like one of the top finishers, and
Right.
I was enjoying it. But there were some really good runners down there. But the triathlon thing seemed to fit. It seemed to work, and I really enjoyed it. And then I just kind of built on that. I did one other triathlon that year. It was in 1990, and then 91 did 4 more triathlons. I won a couple of them, which
Shorter triathlons on
short
Ironmans?
Olympic distance.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
Which are what? That's
That's a
500 meters?
no, it's a 1,500 meter swim.
1,500 meter swim.
And then a 40K bike, so a 24.5 mile
Yeah.
bike ride, and then a 10K run.
That's not too bad. I mean,
No.
that sound the last two sound easy. The swimming or the running and the biking and the running.
Yeah.
Swimming, I don't have. How hard was that? Was that your hardest thing to learn about triathlons? Was the swimming
No.
part?
I was, like I said, I was a competitive swimmer for about a year.
But that was.
But I did that in 8th grade, so that, for me that was 5 years, 6 years earlier. So
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying I don't remember it, but I knew how to swim. So for me,
Right.
I knew the stroke, I knew the freestyle stroke, and then that was actually my strongest stroke while I was swimming competitively. So, but I never did it long enough where I became really, really good at swimming. So my swim was always, for me, it was always the swim. I was able to kind of stay in the mix, so to speak. I was kind of in the big group, if you will. I wasn't left behind. I wasn't in the middle of the pack. I was a little better than that. The biking, I did a little bit better.
Sure.
So I'd catch a lot of people on the bike, but my run was by far and away the strongest. And because I was able to come off the bike and run so strongly when most people were the opposite, where they'd be much, much slower. And of course, mentally, psychologically, when you're catching people on the run
Yeah.
quickly and you're just really getting past them quickly, it really helps you out. And so I just built from there. And as I started doing more and more, and then the Ironman thing was kind of it just happened. I did not plan on doing it. I was working on, in the summer of 92, I was working on, I was going to go to the national championship, which is an Olympic distance race in Cleveland, and I was not doing anything long. I was doing a lot of short, fast, hard stuff, and
Right.
which is what you need for the Olympic distance. And
That's that 1,500, 50 or whatever.
Yep.
and
So I went to the
10K.
national championship in August, and did pretty well there. Finished in the top, I think it was the 90th or something like that in the country. And a couple weeks later, was out in California visiting my mom and dad, and in Ventura County, in Ventura, California, there was this half Ironman race called the Mike and Rob's Most Excellent Triathlon. It was kind of funny. But I figured, what the heck, man, I'll sign up and I'll be out there and I'll just take my bike and, be a chance to I've never done a half, so let's see how it goes and just have some fun. And this was in the days of like a paper, you had to like print the application to get in the race.
Oh,
and,
sure.
And you actually had to check a box of whether or not you wanted to compete for an Ironman slot.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know what that means, but sure, what the heck, so I went out there and I did this half iron race, finished 6th overall,
Wow.
won my age group, and then was called up that, congratulations, you won a slot to the Ironman. And I was like,
Where at?
cool.
Which Ironman?
Yeah. What are you talking about? Well, at the time there was really Hawaii and like a couple others. There was not,
Oh, that was it?
there was
Oh.
very, very few others. And so, then 6 weeks later I was on the start line in Kona, Hawaii.
Holy. You raced for the military, or you just raced in the military categories?
I did not get on the military team until 2005, 2007, and 2008. So those are the only times I was in that. So early on in my career, I was not on the military team. Number one, I didn't know they had one.
Yeah.
So
I didn't either until
yeah,
now.
Yeah, I didn't know until I got out there once. It was my 4th or 5th time out there, third time out there, that I heard about the military team. And then I actually got on the military team for the Olympic distance here in the CONUS. So for the Air Force team.
Right.
And I did a couple of those races out in California. And then the Ironman team didn't come out till late. I mean, I didn't get involved in that till later.
Yeah, we should explain how long an Ironman is. 1 mile run, 1 mile swim.
2.4.
Where did I get the mile
Yeah,
from?
we were
Oh my
talking about a
God.
mile swim before, but yeah, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon, 26.2.
That is nuts. That's just pain. What? So so we have to also explain that to go to Hawaii is like it's the World Championships.
It is
of
yep.
Ironman triathlon. So you have to qualify.
Yes.
Throughout the season, would you have to only qualify at one race to
Yes.
get to Hawaii? You have
Yeah.
to finish in a certain spot to get.
Got it. At the time, because there were so few races out
Right.
there, you could go to any of they had a lot of shorter distance races. Matter of fact, they even had one sprint distance race in Bermuda that was an Ironman qualifier. Believe it or not. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but Chicago, the Mrs. T's triathlon in Chicago, that was an Ironman qualifier 1 year.
Mrs. T.
Yeah. But and actually, I qualified once from that race. But no. Anyway,
Who is Mrs. T, by the way?
Mrs. T's is a pierogi company.
Oh, okay.
They were the sponsor for
okay.
that particular year's race. But anyway, but yeah, you have to qualify. So at the time, you had to finish so many, like top in your age group typically. So for when I did mine, I think I had to finish in the top 6 or something, or top 5 for that particular race. And then other Ironmans I did, as more and more became out there. Now, all the sprint races went away that were qualifiers. The Olympic distance races went away.
Makes sense.
And then it eventually got to the point where to qualify for Hawaii, you had to do an Ironman somewhere in the world and win your age group.
Holy cow.
So it got super competitive. So my first year in Hawaii, I think there was 1,600 people in the start line. And now there's 2,400.
It looks nuts.
Yeah, and there's multiple waves. We had.
Oh, sure.
The first 4 times I did it, it was a mass start, and everyone started at the same time, including the pros. And now the pro men start, then the pro women start a couple minutes later, and then 15 minutes later the amateur men start, and then the amateur. It's all,
right.
But it's just to make sure everybody's spread out on the race course.
Yeah.
But yeah. So my first time out to Hawaii was in '92, and my last time out there was in '08.
You were regionally ranked, right? Or you are, or were? Or?
I was when I was doing it at the time. Yeah.
Is there anybody, any famous Ironmen that you looked up to, or maybe modeled yourself after?
Yeah, Mark Allen was one of them. He was the kind of guy that very, very unassuming, he's very amicable. He's a friendly guy. He'd be on interviews, pre and post race, very friendly, very nice. He'd talk honestly about a lot of different things, and really supportive even to all the athletes around him, no matter who he was racing, whether they beat him or he beat them. He was always, oh, that guy's great, this guy's amazing. And he said that about people that, weren't even in the same zip code. But when he came to race, he had this look on his face, and they called him the grip, because he, especially in an Ironman, he just had this thing that, people had this fear of him, not because he was mean or evil. He was just so hard to race against, and he was so strong, and he had a training ethic, and he had a work ethic that was incredible, and he did an incredible amount of work. He was very smart with the physiology and the science of it, and he brought a lot of things to the table, which made the whole sport better. So he was one of the guys that was really formulated a lot of my ideas of what the Ironman was early on.
How did you balance your military career and basically? I don't want to call it being a pro. I don't know if were you ever a pro Ironman?
No, I was never a pro.
But how did you just that training that goes into, because you got to swim at least once or twice a week, and then you got to go on long bike rides and all that stuff. How did you balance your military career and your interest in Ironmans?
Just the triathlon in general was a part-time job. So when I was training about 15 to 18 hours a week for triathlon, and depending upon what I was doing. But when I was training for an Ironman specifically, I'd ramp that up to closer to 20 hours a week in the last 6 or 8 weeks before the race. And
how many Ironmans would you do typically in a year?
Typically no more than one. There were a couple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a couple times I did 2 a year. But most of the time it was 1 per year or 1 every other year, because they're hard. It takes a lot of work to train for it. So, but in the interim, I was doing a lot of marathons, and I've done 45-ish marathons or something like that. So the marathon training was what really helped my running. So the marathon was kind of, even before I got in the Ironman, the marathon for me was, as a runner, was like the pinnacle of the sport for me, and where I really I felt had a lot of personal success in being able to run good marathons and have fun with it and enjoy it. Met some great people. I ran the National Guard. I ran the Illinois team for 14 years.
Oh, really?
And competed out at Nebraska for the National Guard marathon team. I think 20 years I was out there doing that. But that was really fun. But that's when I was training just for shorter triathlons, that helped keep me fast and do this. And I started doing it for fun. But as my career got kind of more in depth here, early on in my career, my job was to fly.
Right.
And then it was to instruct. And then when I became a full-timer, it was, okay, now you have a, part-time job to fly, full-time job to, air crew scheduling or whatever I did full-time here in the Guard. And the full-time job, and then, of course, the family, right? You get a bigger family, you start doing more, and you start training less and less and less. And then it was probably in the last 10 or 15 years I really kind of tapered off significantly. And
But you do my favorite sport now, mostly cycling.
Yes.
Which I don't understand why anybody would want to do anything else. Running, unless I'm being chased.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't even cyclocross looks cool to a certain extent, but I don't want to have to pick up my bike and run with it. I mean, it does look cool to get muddy, but on the other hand, and then swimming, I've 10 feet and I'm tired. I'm like, what in the world what is this? I'm going to drown. So I know you do a lot of cycling now, and one of the big things that you invited me on is the Gold Star ride. What is that? What is that? And what does it help? Or what charity or whatever does it support?
Okay. So a Gold Star family is a family that has lost a loved one in battle, in defending the country. So a few years ago, I have a couple friends in the Illinois Army National Guard who started an organization called Gold Star Mission. And their whole goal in this particular mission in the state of Illinois was to recognize the Illinois Guardsmen that have died in the fight against terrorism since 9/11. There's 34 of them. And their goal was like, okay, how can we recognize them and keep their name alive? This always remember, never forget. That is their motto. So they came up with this idea of a bike ride. Well, let's do a bike ride. And they thought of, okay, let's do a century. Oh no, let's do 200. No, it's got to be big. It's got to be something that's. So they said, let's go 500 miles. And the original thing was, we'll start and we don't stop until we hit 500. Right? That was the original one. Then they kind of thought a little more and they go, oh no, let's do it over a couple of days. And they kind of settled on 4 days. That they would, over a period of 4 days, they would ride to various points in Illinois, and with the whole goal of recognizing all 34 of those soldiers and airmen. So our first year, we rode from Cairo in Southern Illinois, the southern tip of Illinois, all the way to St. Charles, Illinois. And we did over 4 days, averaged about 125 a day. I think our longest day that first year was 140, the one day. But and we'd stay overnight at armories. National Guard armories.
Oh, that's cool.
And we'd stop at various VFWs and American Legions and firehouses and those kind of things, where each place we would stop, we'd have some sort of recognition ceremony, and certainly in the evenings at the armories, we'd invite those Gold Star families in, and especially the ones of those particular service members that had passed away, brought their families in, recognized them and their children and their families, and we raised money. So, and the whole goal was to raise money for this Gold Star Mission charity. And the charity would provide $1,000 scholarships for anyone, not just military members, anyone. And the only requirement is you have to pick one of those 34 and write a story about it. You write a paper on what you learned about that person. So we're keeping their name alive and keeping their history alive by people learning about it. So over the last several years, now we do it over 5 days, 100 miles a day.
Sounds much better.
Gives us a little more time at each place too to do a few more things, because you get a group of 35 people riding at 15 miles an hour all day. It takes about 12 or 14 hours to get it all done. So we shorten the ride up just a bit, but still 500 miles over 5 days, and we still do the same goal. And we end up every year at the Gold Star Mother's Day ceremony. It's usually held in St. Charles, Illinois, or Springfield, Illinois. It rotates each year. And we finish there, and part of the whole ceremony recognizing the Gold Star mothers. And we've also expanded it to any service member that has passed away that's from Illinois, regardless of service, since 9/11. So our numbers have dramatically increased of who we recognize and call their names out. And it's one of the most moving, emotional, uplifting type of things you could ever do. And it's the riding becomes the easiest part of the entire week, because the camaraderie you have of all your fellow riders, you're learning all of their stories. Some of these people actually served with the members that have passed.
Oh, cool.
Some of them are family members. We now have people who were 17, 18 years old when they first rode with us, now have joined the Army National Guard and are in a unit of someone that they wrote about. So it's kind of cool to see it all come together. But yeah, the riding piece is something that's a lot of fun for me, and done some racing. Of course, I had some competition in there for a while, but but the Gold Star mission is something that really has a close place in my heart. I've done a lot of stuff with them from the beginning.
When does that take place?
It's usually the last week of September.
Okay.
Because the last Sunday of September is Gold Star Mother's Day.
Okay.
And we usually tie it up with, we start on Monday and ride Monday through, actually we start on Wednesday. So we typically all get together on Tuesday night somewhere and wherever we're going to start that year.
Sure.
And then we ride around the state and finish up wherever it's going to be.
So hopefully this year, fingers crossed, we can do it in the flesh for real.
Yeah. This year's ride, of course, was all virtual.
Right.
But we had more people ride this year than we've ever had. They did it virtually.
These virtual rides are great.
Yeah. And but we had some folks who did their 500 miles in 4 days.
Woo.
We have had some people like me who took all 30 to do it. But I started out strong. I started out with a 130 on day one, and then finished up strong at the end of the month. But it's a great ride. It's a great event, and I got a few other cyclist friends I'm trying to get joined in with us because it's so much fun.
Yeah, and it's great. It sounds like there's a lot of support. It's supported. So pack your bags. You've got cars that set up food for you and all that other stuff. It
is unbelievably supported. And my first year doing it, I think I gained weight as I rode.
Man,
you had so much food to eat, and you had so much fun. And the riding, like I said, the riding becomes secondary because you're talking the whole time, and it's not a difficult pace, and you're in a group, so you're constantly have some wind blocking you, and you got vehicles in the front and back. You got Illinois State Police that is guarding the traffic. It's incredible.
That's as close as you're gonna. Most people, at least I'll ever get to being pro.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh, it is pro level support. I mean, I've been on cycling teams, and I have a cycling team with Bike Shop, and we can't provide the support for my cycling team like these guys do for Gold Star.
What about 126th Air Refueling Wing team?
Let's do it.
All right.
I say we get it. I know a few folks in the group that ride, so let's get it.
I've started a Strava, by the way. It's 126. Look for if you're on Strava and you're listening. I set it up a couple months ago. No one's found it. I even invited the commander, and I don't know. He just ignores my Strava request.
Well, I guess. The commander's the kind of guy that only got on Strava because of the virtual ride this year. I typically don't really care if people see my stuff, but since I've gotten on Strava,
sir, if it doesn't happen on Strava, it doesn't happen.
That's right.
I don't know how mad I get. I did a ride here that my Wahoo died on the way, and I was like, "What? How am I going to prove that I did this?" It doesn't make any sense, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen on Strava. I want to thank Colonel Tom Jackson for coming out, the 126th Air Refueling Commander. Sir, again, thanks for sitting down for so long.
You bet, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Always fun to talk cycling. I have this tendency, I think, to bore people with cycling. I talk probably more cycling than they want me to talk about. I did that. I think I realized that last week over at maintenance. I was talking to Master Sgt. Blankenship about cycling, and I think he was just giving me the courtesy. Yeah. Okay, shut up now. We need to talk about other things. But I wanted to talk about cycling. It's amazing, too, how many of our leaders in Illinois were prior enlisted. I'm thinking of Lieutenant Colonel Lane, Major Lubeck, my boss, Captain McDonald, and the TAG, Major General Rich Neely.
With your look around the Air Force, I'm Staff Sergeant Britt Crowley. Starting next month, some first-term overseas assignments for unaccompanied airmen and guardians will extend to 36 months. Lieutenant General Brian Kelly, Deputy Chief of Staff for Manpower, says during these moves, service members not only have to adjust to new jobs, but also to a new culture and country, which takes time. Kelly says with the longer tour length, units can better train and develop airmen, as well as instill a stronger sense of stability. The new policy does not apply to retrainees, cross-flows, and prior service who receive a commission. For accompanied service members, the overseas tour length will remain 36 or 48 months, depending on the tour type. New female body armor is being distributed to Air Force defenders worldwide, and some of the first recipients are praising the change. The new, lighter female armor features a curved chest plate, a shorter torso size, and an adjustable back that tightens. The gear comes in a variety of sizes, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all, allowing a better fit to provide the best coverage and protection. One female Security Forces airman at Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico, says getting the better-fitting body armor is a historic moment for the Air Force because it shows how much the military values females. The High Energy Laser Weapon System 2, also known as H2, is a counter-unmanned aerial system directed energy weapon. It's entering the final phase of testing for a new class of weapons with anti-drone capabilities. H2 was developed as part of a directed energy experiment designed to deploy commercial systems to combatant commands for training, testing, and evaluation over a 1-year period. The weapon system has already completed its first and second phases of testing that monitored performance, integration, and reliability. When the 1-year period ends, the system could move forward into operations or be sent back for more testing. And that's your look around the Air Force.
MilTax from Military One Source includes free, easy-to-use tax preparation and e-filing software designed for situations common to service members and their families. The suite of services include MilTax consultants who can answer your questions and advise you on military-specific tax requirements and deductions. Don't forget, you can find out about us and find out our links to our webpage and Facebook at linktr.ee/126ARW. Check us out on Facebook. If you're not watching this on Facebook and you downloaded us on one of your favorite podcast apps, go to the Facebook page and look up our Ask an Airman, because we just had drill. The Ask an Airman question is, what do you like about yourself? That was a question that made me very uncomfortable. I don't know about how you feel about answering that question, but what do you feel, what do you like about yourself? You can answer that question on our Facebook page. Don't forget, if you want to pass along some information, because you have information, you can email roll call at 126.arw.pa.mm.org@us.af.mil. Thanks for listening to Roll Call, a 126th Air Refueling Wing podcast focused on people, mission, and community. I'm Tech Sergeant Brian Ellison.